Okay, picture this incredibly universal scenario. You're chilling on the couch, totally zoned out, when suddenly it hits you. You desperately need your phone charger from the bedroom. You stand up completely dialed in. You're a person on a mission, right? So you march down the hallway, grab the doorknob, step right through your bedroom door, and then blank. Nothing. Just absolute empty space. You're standing there in the middle of your bedroom, looking around like an alien who just beamed down to Earth, asking yourself, wait, why am I here? Was it a glass of water, a book, my keys? And the craziest part is you literally have to retrace your physical steps, walk all the way back to the living room, and sit in that exact same spot on the couch for your brain to finally go, oh, right, the charger. When this glitch hits, it is so incredibly disorienting. But hey, if this happens to you on a weekly basis, congratulations, you aren't losing your mind. This is actually a built-in quirk of the human brain.
So here's the absolutely crucial thing to understand. This sudden memory wipe, it's not caused by the amount of time that just passed. It's not about how far you walked from the couch either. It is literally the physical act of passing through a doorway. The threshold itself is the trigger. But why exactly does your own house possess this weird, secret ability to hack your memory? Well, to figure that out, we really need to look at how psychologists finally managed to capture and measure this strange phenomenon in a lab setting.
For the longest time, people just wrote this off as simple absent-mindedness. But in 2011, researchers at the University of Notre Dame, led by a psychologist named Gabriel Radvansky, decided to put this to the test with a pretty brilliant virtual reality experiment. They had participants strap on VR headsets and navigate this digital space. The task was super simple. Pick up a colored block, stash it in a virtual backpack, and then walk over to a different table to drop it off. But here was the catch. Sometimes that second table was just across the same large room. Other times, the participants had to physically walk through a virtual doorway into a completely new room to reach it. And the results were completely mind-blowing. The data showed a massive spike in memory errors. When participants just walked across the exact same room, their memory error rate stayed incredibly low. They remembered the block perfectly. But the exact second they crossed through a virtual doorway into a different room, the error rate spiked off the charts. Their memory of what was in that backpack simply vanished. The researchers were actually so stunned by this that they rebuilt the exact same experiment in physical real-world rooms with actual doors. And guess what? The outcome was perfectly identical. These doorways were literally acting like invisible memory-wiping force fields.
Okay, so to understand why this actually happens, we really have to look at how our minds process reality. See, your brain doesn't record your life like one continuous, unbroken video file. Doing that would just take up way too much cognitive processing power. Instead, your brain chops your continuous experiences down into smaller chunks, or episodes. Psychologists actually refer to the dividing lines between these episodes as event boundaries. An event boundary is basically that exact precise point where your brain registers a major shift in your environment and decides, okay, time to start a new mental chapter. Think of your working memory kind of like a computer's RAM. When you're sitting in your living room, your brain opens a mental file folder labeled living room. The temperature, the lighting, and your brilliant thought to go get a charger all get shoved right into that file. But the exact second you step through a doorway, the environment fundamentally shifts. The acoustics change, the lighting is different. Your subconscious instantly recognizes an event boundary, aggressively purges its cache, basically violently slamming that living room door shut, and opens a brand new, totally empty folder labeled bedroom. So you didn't forget the charger because you have a bad memory. You forgot because your brain is almost, too efficient at organizing its filing system.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, if my brain is so incredibly efficient, why does it make me look so foolish in my own hallway? And to answer that, we really have to travel back in time, roughly 100,000 years. I want you to imagine you're an early human hunter-gatherer. You're walking rapidly through a dense, quiet, prehistoric forest, actively looking for berries. You are completely 100% focused on the ground right in front of you. Your mental forest folder is open, and everything around you feels relatively safe and contained. But then, suddenly, you step right out of the tree line and into the wide-open, grassy savanna. This sudden shift, that is an ancient event boundary. The rules of survival have just instantly changed. You're no longer hidden by the trees, you are entirely exposed. In this split second, your brain desperately needs you to forget all about those berries in the forest, so that absolutely all of your cognitive processing power can be dedicated to scanning this new environment for immediate threats. Because honestly, if you stayed focused on those berries, you'd probably get eaten by a lion. So this whole doorway glitch, It's actually ancient survival software. Your modern safe little house is just accidentally triggering it. And here is where it gets incredibly crazy for us living in the modern world. This doesn't just happen with physical wooden doors. It happens with digital doorways too. Anytime your environment fundamentally shifts, even just on a screen, it acts as a digital event boundary. I mean, have you ever unlocked your smartphone with the full intention of checking a specific email? But the exact moment that home screen opens up and the whole visual interface changes, your brain instantly does a memory purge and you just mindlessly tap on a social media app instead? Your brain literally closed your mental folder just because the visual environment shifted. Which brings up an incredibly relatable question. Have you ever opened a new tab on your web browser, stared blankly at the Google search bar, and completely forgotten what you were just about to type? Opening a new tab forces a visual reset. Our own technology is basically inadvertently weaponizing the doorway effect against us on a daily basis. Every single time you flip between windows or unlock a screen, you are passing through a boundary that basically tells your brain to clear its cache to make room for new incoming data. So the big question is, how do we stop this? How do we hack our own evolutionary programming so we can just grab what we need and get on with our day? Well, the psychologists who study working memory have actually found some highly effective ways to bypass this glitch. They've essentially developed actionable cheat codes that can physically force your brain to keep that vital mental folder open, even when you pass through a doorway. Let's break down these 3 incredibly useful hacks. First up is the physical anchor. Say you need scissors from the kitchen. Just carry a piece of paper in your hand while you walk. Holding a related physical object literally bridges those 2 environments for your brain. Second is the verbal anchor. Our working memory is highly tied to language, so if you simply repeat the word charger, charger, charger out loud as you walk, you're occupying what's called your phonological loop, which completely blocks your brain from hitting that reset button. And third, context reinstatement. If the glitch does hit you and you forget, whatever you do, don't walk all the way back. Just close your eyes and visually imagine the room you just left. Picture yourself sitting right there on the couch. That mental image alone is usually enough to trick your brain into reopening the old file folder. So the next time you find yourself standing blankly in the middle of a room, try not to get frustrated. Take a second to just appreciate the incredible invisible mechanics of this massively complex machine inside your skull. It is constantly working overtime to curate your reality and keep you safe. Ultimately, we are ancient creatures living in a modern world, navigating square rooms and digital screens with brains that were perfectly designed for prehistoric forests. Which leaves me with one final, kind of fun question for you to consider today. What is the absolutely most ridiculous thing you've ever forgotten right after walking through a doorway? Keep that in mind the next time you go hunting for a phone charger. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps keep your mental files open just a little bit longer.